All right, Jeff, we're going to dig in right here to what I think are the issues in your swing, and there's a couple of different things here that are kind of domino effect, and I'm sure you're probably aware of each of these things. I just want to shed some light on cause and effect. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm just going to call out the things that I see in your swing, and then we'll get into problem solving them in just a second. So if we look at the down the line view over here on the right, the first part of your backswing is pretty orthodox. Nothing really stands out as a problem. But here in these next few frames, we're going to really see a deterioration of your arm structure, specifically what's going on with your right arm. It's about this phase in your backswing where the lower body basically begins to stop turning, and because of that, you begin to flex the trail elbow too much, which means you bend your right arm way too much, and then you start to really abduct at the top. And so, what abduction means is it's just basically the right arm is moving back away from the rib cage. All this additional length to your swing is quite unnecessary, and in fact, it causes you to be quite steep in early transition. So I see this hand path getting a little too shifted out toward the toe line on the downswing, and I see the shaft coming down, above that shoulder or right in that shoulder joint at this position. So when this left arm is parallel to the ground, the lead arm is too far out over the toe line, and the shaft is just simply too high coming through the shoulder joint. Now, this is where the next series of compensations starts to kick in. So the first thing that you do is the right heel comes up, the right knee moves out toward the ball, and that move is taking whatever tilt you had in your pelvis and leveling it out. And what that leveling out does is it actually changes the force into the handle. It moves it changes the direction in a more outward fashion, which is what allows you to kind of shallow this club very, very late and get that sweet spot back in behind your hands at this point. But you can see the shoulders are staying closed, the lower body really can't rotate, and all of that is just in an effort to buy time for that sweet spot to fall back behind your hands so you don't come steep and over the top of the golf ball. But the problem is we're losing a lot of speed, and we don't have a lot of force on the back of the handle to kind of sustain the club face. And you can just see the body's not rotating, so it just kind of flips around the corner. So looking at the face on view over here on the right, I'll highlight those same things. And you'll notice you're turning, and then about right here in this phase, this lower body, you kind of throw the brakes on the pelvis. And so at this point, you're looking for ways to lengthen out the swing. And how you do it is essentially you take the angle. If I drew a line that was in your right arm right here, kind of looks like that. You start collapsing that angle and really, really getting that right arm very, very narrow at the top. And so you can see there's a lot of extension in the wrist, which is lengthening out the swing. There's a lot of folding and bending of the right arm, which is lengthening the swing out. And then there's that abduction move that I showed you from down the line. So let's get into a little bit of the fix here. And I'll start with the down the line view over here. Excuse me, the face on view. And I'm just going to kind of throw some comparisons up there really quick. I'm going to go ahead and just zoom this in. We don't really need the ball in the frame. I want you to be able to see your body pretty closely. And zoom this guy over here in on the right. So again, at the left arm parallel position, that's when I see the lower body really stop turning. If you kind of look here, you can see there's movement, and then it kind of stops. Now it's just the upper body moving. So if we take this other golfer, throw him in about that same position, now you can see your right arms are close to similar positions here. He may have just a little bit more width in the right arm than you do, but not a whole lot. But as he goes to the top, you're still seeing the pelvis turn a bit, and you'll notice how high above his head the shaft is. So that's just showing you how wide the right arm is staying, whereas in your case, I know these are slightly different camera angles. Yours is a little bit lower, but still the shaft is well behind your head here. And that is just a big time indicator of a lot of extension in your left wrist and a lot of flexion in that right arm. So the first thing I would want you to do is I'd want you to start working on backswings where from this left arm parallel to the backswing position to the top, I want you to facilitate a little bit more rotation of that right hip working back up and around you. And that will be allowed because the left knee is going to rotate in just a little bit more on the downswing, a little bit more in this direction here. So a little bit more left knee movement is going to get the right hip working a little bit back up and around. And that's going to allow you to preserve the length or the distance between, say, your right shoulder and your right hand on the club. I want to keep that angle as wide as you can as you turn to the top. I want to maintain some width. Now, when I say I want to maintain width, I also want to be able to maintain some depth. So let's go back to the down the line view and I'll elaborate on what I mean by depth. All right, so here we go. Zoom these in. All right, so let's go to that left arm parallel to the ground position. Again, both players. Now, what I want you to notice is the right arm, the trail arm. So you force your trail arm into external rotation very early in the backswing, which means this elbow is very rotated this way. And it might even be something that you've tried to do. I know a lot of golfers think that that's kind of the key to getting shallow, but your trail elbow actually needs to be a little bit further back this way to accommodate a little bit more depth to the left arm. I'll get to that in a second, but if you look at the golfer over here on the right, you can see kind of my model of what I like to see for early rotation of the body. Notice how I can see some daylight appearing between his knees, and then in your case, very resisted and no daylight there in between the knees. So from this phase, you need to keep getting depth to the butt of the club. So if I draw a straight line down right there, straight line down there, I want to keep seeing the butt of your club moving diagonally in this direction. And so when you get to the top, one of the things I like to do is draw a straight line down from the butt of the club, and it kind of paints an overall picture of depth to the butt of the club. And in your case, it's probably about on the ankle bone. I like to see it a little closer to the heel line, like you see here. But the biggest thing I want to call out is the positioning of your right arm here. And you'll notice how this upper forearm bone is very, very angled, okay? That means that your trail shoulder is internally rotated and abducted. And abducted, again, means moving away from the midline of your torso. So, in a nutshell, I'd like to see this elbow a little bit more this way with the feeling that the hands are a little bit further back this way. And what that's going to do is it's going to allow you to the capability of shallowing the club a little bit better. So if you watch the golfer on the right and notice when he starts down, you're going to see as his hands are moving out, the shaft will pitch back behind him. And that left arm, if we draw, a straight line down from the lead shoulder, those hands are still way inside of that shoulder line in this direction. Whereas in your case, because they're not coming from a shallow enough position, when you get to left arm parallel, it's about right there, your hands are basically very, very close to that lead shoulder position, and the shaft is very, very high. Okay, so from there, you're not going to be able to turn, you're not going to be able to rotate. Your body's going to be seeking ways to further get that club to drop back behind you. And again, that's with the plantar flexion in the foot, knee popping out toward the ball, pelvis leveling out, all in an effort to get that sweet spot to drop back behind you. So in recapping this, on the backswing, go ahead and allow this trail elbow to pull a little bit further back behind you. Don't force it internally rotated early in the backswing. I want to see you getting much more depth to the butt of the club and to the lead arm at this position. And I want to see you doing that by allowing the left knee to break in and allowing your right hip to continue to work back and around so that you can keep moving the handle diagonally in this direction toward the top of the backswing. So if I were going to stop you and kind of draw your arms where I would want them to be, I'd want the left arm to be a little bit more like this, right arm to be a little bit more like this, club to be a little bit more in this ballpark over here. And you can just kind of see how that would paint a much sort of shallower transition picture for us. And then from there, those other lower body compensations would not be necessary. So I hope this gives you kind of an insight into your swing. And if you need additional help, please feel free to reach out via email, and I will give you clarification for anything that you need.